Yo, welcome to another episode of the BJJ Goons podcast. I'm Mushmaster Tim Spriggs, and with me as always every week is...
Yo, what's up everybody? It's Nico Ball, and glad to be back once again at TLI with another special guest.
Yes, a very special guest. This gentleman to my right has the second fastest submission in featherweight history. I believe in 2022, this gentleman had the fastest submission in the entire UFC. He is currently the number 12 featherweight in the world. He has a 13-2 record, coming all the way from Nigeria to the DMV. This guy already is a DMV combat sports legend, and absolutely, yes. And
he said, "I'll take it."
Actually, I think that's true. Yeah, definitely, for sure. Yes, yes. And I look forward to seeing how far this gentleman can go. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time on the BJJ Goons podcast, we have Super Sodiq Yusuff. Yeah, we're gonna have to put that in post.
I know, dude. Things might actually be it. One of them might be gunshots, or it might be a bong hit. I don't know, so I'm not gonna press any of the buttons on the soundboard.
I appreciate y'all having me, man. It's been a while. I was like, dang, when am I gonna make my?
Well, you were busy fighting all the time, so you know, and like my first introduction to TLI was when Master Lloyd brought me in to start filming with Sodiq. So, you know, I learned some of my super important life lessons from Sodiq. I wish he had told me the first one at the beginning of our trip to Vegas, because I went with him to Contender. He waited till after the trip, and he's like, yo, looks like you're going to be around for a while, so I just want to let you never wait for Master Lloyd to get food. Yeah. I was like, yo, all them times I was starving in this hotel room, you just let me sit there on the couch waiting for him.
For getting the food, but if you wait on him, he's going to wait until the last minute, like, okay, now I'm hungry after even starting.
Yeah, he does it to Miss Vicky all of the time, but like, yeah, like that was some golden advice. I really needed to know that, because, you know, it's Master Lloyd. It's Master Lloyd. You don't want to, like, you know, he's a black belt, but no, you should never wait on him for some food. Yeah. So that was like one of the most important lessons I needed coming on to the TLI. There's like a lot of jiu-jitsu stuff that's like really hard, but you know, you don't want to starve yourself.
I think my first experience with Sodiq was when you were like 18, 19 years old. It was you, Cusimo, right?
Yes.
And you guys were crazy enough to come into this team with all these guys that are already established martial artists, and you guys had you wrestled in high school.
Yeah, but that was nothing. Like, to be honest, that's why I said I feel like one of the reasons why I got good so quick was because I got used to being a nail really, really early on. I mean, it's true. That's the truth. I said everybody's a good hammer. Not a lot of people are good nails, you know. But in this room, like, y'all are, you know, that I wasn't going to be in here beating anybody. Especially in the competition team class. And I couldn't really make it to the regular classes because I'll be too beat up on the competition team class, you know. So that's the only time I could get my wins. But in the competition team class, it's just like, I'm just trying to survive, you know, and like you start getting some pride and being able to last a little bit longer, all the way to the point where, like, I feel like the last 2 years, Master Lloyd's been really, like, emphasizing, like, me starting to be offensive, you know, like, I had to really make that switch, like, okay, I'm good enough now to start attacking people instead of being on defense the whole time. It's one of those things, I honestly, when I fought Andre Philly, like, I got in some great positions against him, and when I was there the whole time, I was expecting to, like, because I was rolling with Jamel and Malachi the whole camp. So, like, I'm waiting for him to, like, hit some counters, so I'm trying to, like, keep my base, you know? Like,
yes.
Like, all 4 times he's steady. But, like, if I had opened up more, you know, I might have been able to get a finish, you know? But it is what it is. It got me here.
You are here, and we're going to ask you some very hard-hitting questions, because, you know, at the BJJ Goons, we always like asking the hard-hitting, difficult questions, but Nico has... The ones that matter. But Nico has some icebreakers for you.
Okay, so, because in true TLF fashion, we got to, you know, we were interviewing Bree, and we were trying to do our sound check, and then Jamil pulled us out off his playlist, you know, just alone. So we want to, like, you know, get those important TLI questions down. So the first question is, what is your favorite artist?
You see, I got to hold yourself back these days, you know? You got to separate the art from the artist. It's Kanye West. You got to separate the man from the art, you know?
Okay, and then
you got like, Kanye West. But Kanye West.
True. And you know, actually, one of my favorite moments from filming ever was when I was filming you in the bathroom cutting weight, which I wasn't even supposed to be there at all. I was supposed to be in a mansion filming Master Lloyd's mastermind thing in this cute little dress or whatever, because it was very professional. And he's like, nah, Sadiq's cutting weight. I'm gonna Uber you over there. And then like you were all wrapped up in sheets listening to Kanye, and I was filming, and you just turned to the camera and you started like rapping part. Like that is the best clip that I have. Like I think Instagram took it down once and I reposted it.
That's like my go-to thing for weight cuts, especially when the weight cut starts getting hard. I have like a whole like playlist of Kanye West songs that I always listen to. I remember that everything I'm not made me everything I am. Like I like that line. So that's when I'm cutting weight. When it gets hard, I'll start singing that jump like on repeat all over and over again.
Yeah. All right. So then the next one was, what's your favorite song?
What's my favorite song? It's actually not that one. My favorite song is probably, I don't even think it's his song. It's him, Jay-Z, and J-I-D-K or something like that. It's like a poet. It's him, Jay-Z, and a poet. Never Let Me Down. Never Let Me Down. That's my favorite part. And it's not even his part. It's like the poet's part. That joint's dope.
Never Let Me Down. I'm trying to look that one up.
Man, well, it's not a very popular Kanye song, but like, man, that joint's dope. Because the whole beat change when the poet starts going, and it's mad inspirational. Like sometimes I just listen to that part, or like when I have like a hard workout, I just play that part on loop.
All right, that's a good one. Next one, favorite shoe.
Favorite shoe. Man, I hope the camera can catch me right now. Right, so
He's got slides, but you train with Jamil Hill. You grew up training with Jamil Hill. I know you at least gotta have a shoe to stand with the.
Let me bring the mood down a little bit. So when I came to this country, my mom, we was all illegal. We didn't have the proper documents. So all the jobs my mom had was all under the table jobs. Well, under the table jobs, she had like three jobs minimum at a time, you know. So we couldn't really afford the good things in life. So shoes was not the best shoe I probably had was some fake Nikes that I got from my boy Toby. Shout out to Toby. But they looked good enough, and he was selling them, and I knew they were fake. I don't think he didn't. I don't think he knew that I knew they were fake. But I bought them just so I could like fit in, you know. Like my attitude was cool enough for me to fit in, and I was a captain of football, captain of wrestling, so I was always. Like, I was cool enough to fit. I just couldn't afford, like, the cool clothes. So, like, I grew up like that my whole life. And now that I'm an adult, I think, like, I kind of, like, phased past the point of, like, caring about shoes. It's one of them things that, like, if my fiance is not making me buy it, I'm probably ain't gonna get it.
Oh, we bringing up the fiance. And
like you see, that's why I got the slides on right now.
It's okay, Sadiq. I haven't had a pair of Jordans since my uncle gave me his hand-me-downs and outgrown. Sad day.
Like, somebody bought me my Jordans, but like, and I don't have a favorite shoe, like, because I'm not that into shoes. I do have several Tims, but you know, at TLI, I just felt like it was an obligatory question.
Yeah,
you know, you gotta ask.
Jamil has like a million shoes. That's why.
We just showed Jamil random shoes, and he named them all. Or when I'm like, I'll randomly see shoes and I'll take the pictures, like somebody wearing them in the metro, and I'll send it to Jamil. I'm like, what are these? And he always knows. It's wild. All right, favorite video game. Dragon
Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3. That's a mouthful, but that's the best song ever.
If you know, though.
Yeah, hey,
I'm not gonna lie.
Man, that was the best Dragon Ball Z game they ever made, and they've never made anyone close to it. It had like 50 characters, yo, and I wish they would bring it onto like the new systems. Actually, I'm off video games now because of Maxloid, but that's one of those games that like I 100% believe I was one of the best people in the world at. There was nobody that I've ever met. I'm telling you, for real. Like people would be like, man, I'm vicious at that game, and I'll play them and like smoke them. Like they're like, man, I've never lost in this game before. If they had like tournaments for that jump, man, I could have been pro.
They might, dude. It's too late now because you don't do video games. They might have it.
Well, I saw video games for 5 months. So in May 5th, I can play video games again.
No, all right, so we're gonna skip the last icebreaker and go into that. Like,
wait, no, I want the icebreakers call.
Okay, fine. Okay. But let's go. Let's talk about this bet, because I was gonna ask, like, do you play with the kids from TLX? I know, but they're more Fortnite. And I was like, are you whooping them or are they whooping you? But clearly, you said you whooping everybody in that game.
No. Don't get it twisted. I said I was whooping everybody in the Dragon Ball Z game. Every other game, I'm not that good at. Like, me and Malachi play Warzone, like, all the time. So it's me, Malachi, my boy Paul, Jason Casimo, like you were just talking about. We always play Warzone, and I'm like trash, man. Like, if you're trying to win, don't play with me. If we're playing to have fun. Like, you know, we're getting participation medals over here, man. Like, we're playing to have fun as a team. Like, we're not trying to get no W's. If you take it too seriously, I don't want to play with you. That's why, like, I only play with like a certain like three or four people, because they know, like, okay, like, man, my life is stressful enough. I gotta fight in my underwear in the middle of a cage. Like, I'm not playing games to be stressed out. I'm playing the game to have fun.
Okay. So before we move on to the last one, let's see. You said that like you swore off video games. I saw this, but I want to go back to the original bet. So you and Master Lloyd have like this thing. Master Lloyd makes bets with everybody, and normally it's a great to make bets with him. He had this one thing going, like when I trained in the morning on the comp team, if you got to training and were on the mats in your gi on time and he wasn't, he would buy you lunch. And like Malachi's dumb self would get Chipotle, but Master Lloyd only eats seafood. So like, you know, he only gets like stuffed salmon. I don't know why Malachi would get Chipotle over stuffed salmon, but it was like everyday lunch because he was never here on time. But you made a high ticket bet.
Yes.
And you lost. So can you explain why you made this bet? I feel like you did it when you were at a UFC fight.
Yes. So my last fight, we was cutting weight. And we was all in the tub. Master Lloyd, now that he's a little bit older, he doesn't do a full weight cut with you, but he'll be around, and when it's like the hot tub part, he'll participate in that stuff. He just doesn't do like the sauna. So he got in the hot tub, and keep in mind, Miss Vicky been complaining about how fatty he's been for like a whole year now.
Okay, Miss Vicky complained about everything. He won't change his clothes, his entire wardrobe was given to him during Sodiq's fights.
This was outrageous. If you had seen this was outrageous. I took a. I had my.
See it on his page. He posts these things. So if you go back like 2 months or so,
I had my video, my phone, and I was recording a selfie, and I panned over to him. And his body looked outrageous. I hope y'all clip this. His body looked disgusting. So I panned over to him. The video, you guys can't hear me talking because there's music playing. I panned over to him. He's back there and his guts hanging out. And I turned back to myself and I was like, hey, Master Lloyd, I'm going to do that over and pan over to you again. But he doesn't know I'm still recording. I never stopped recording. So I panned over to him again. Now he's underwater like this. With his hands outstretched. And I was like, oh man, that's hilarious. I posted a full clip with the fat gut and the fake being skinny. Went in the sauna to keep cutting weight. Next thing you know, like 2 minutes later, he storms in like, see, give me your fucking phone. I was like, for what? He's like, man, take that shit down, man. Take that shit down. I was like, hell no, I'm not taking that shit. I was like, that's staying right there, man. He grabs my phone. Keep in mind, I'm still cutting weight. He grabs my phone. I'm listening to Kanye West, so you know it's starting to get rough. He grabs my phone, runs out of the jar. I was like, man, can someone go get him and tell him I need the phone for the weight cut? He finally brings it back, and he walks up to me with straight face. He's like, all right, you know what? That taught me a lesson right there. I'm gonna lose the weight. I'm gonna lose the weight. So we ended there. He said he's gonna lose the weight. We finished cutting weight. Now him and Bemi are going back and forth. Bemi's one of the younger guys on the team. They're going back and forth.
We might have to have on the show one time.
So he's telling Bemi, man, I weigh blah, blah. Keep in mind, I can't hear what the numbers are. And I'm cutting weight. So him and Bemi go in the back. They come back after checking their weight. And Bemi's like, man, you ain't going to lose that weight. He's like, man, I'm going to lose all the weight. I'm going to lose all the weight. And then I asked him, I was like, hey, how much did you weigh the last time you did competition? The last time you weighed in for competition? He said, 215. So I'm like, man, you ain't making that. I thought they were talking about 215. So I was like, you're not making that weight anytime soon, man. And Benny's like, yeah, I'll bet you 500. I was like, you know what, Benny? Put me in that bet too. We'll both go 500, make a total of 1K, you know? I should have known better because I know Benny don't got freaking 500. You know? So it's 1K at this point. And then I finally found out he was only like 230 something. His body just looked disgusting. His body looks outrageous, man. His body looked crazy. But he was only maybe 15 pounds of weight. It was just all in one spot, you know? So I made the bet with him. He came back, and, you know, thanks to me, he made some good, healthy life choices. He started rolling again, you know, because for a while he wasn't rolling. He was just sitting around. And then he lost the weight, you know? So he could thank me for adding on to the quality of his life. You know, that's what I'm here for.
Apparently he didn't thank you. He just hopped into another bet. Like, how did you end that? And then, like, I see it. Well, a sad video of you putting away your video
my game.
Okay. I was like, why one after another?
The game one wasn't really a bet. It was him like convincing me. He was just trying to say I spent too much time.
That's reverse psychology. He was mad he lost the bet.
To be honest, he had a point. Because he was like, I was spending too much time playing video games. Like, I'm always on my phone playing games and stuff like that. He was like, if you spend that time that you spending playing the game doing something productive, like learning a new skill or making content, it'll take it a lot further. And I will say, ever since he did that, like, I started reposting stuff on YouTube now. Like, I've seen a big difference. It's only really been like 2 or 3 weeks, but I've been able to generate like a whole lot more content and learn a lot of new stuff. So he was right about that. I help him, he helped me.
Alright, that's what's up. That is a hilarious story. I was dying. Oh my god. And then the last one before we get into the actual martial arts question is, we're going to start with, I want to know what the favorite fit is, and then we're going to explain your fashion, your foray into fashion modeling. So, Sodiq's fiance has... he posted on your page, not even on your story. So now we know, like, because she really be like, and he be going out there. I don't know if it's voluntary or whatever. We've talked to Carlos about, just gonna end that there. No, they're a young love. So, what's your favorite fit that you've modeled for the YouTube show? And then can you explain what it is you're out there doing?
All right, so to explain it first, my fiance is like very shy. I hope she watches this too. She's very, very shy, but behind the scenes, she's like, how y'all hear on that video, that's how she is all the time. She's always faking like she's a YouTuber. So, like, if she's cooking food, she's like, all right, we're back here on my YouTube channel, blah, blah, blah. Like, she does that, like, as for jokes. And then, like, whenever, like, she gets bored, she does the fashion jump. And I was like, man, why don't we just record this one day? Like, you know, because, like, that's not the first time that's happened. So I was like, today we're going to record this. I have video of her actually talking, but she's like, no, I don't want to post that. So it's also, like, me trying to get her out of her shell, you know? So I'm like, man, I'm, like, a serious guy. If I could, like, make fun of myself, like, you could kind of do it too, you know? So, like, every time I post it, it's just, like, more reason of me trying to convince her, like, man, just get out your shell. Like, you could do this for real. Like, instead of us faking, you know? So I was like, now my Instagram is, like, her fake YouTube channel, you know? That's why I posted the first one. So, like, whenever my fiance gets bored, she makes me model for her unexistent YouTube channel. So it's one of those things where I do it because it's funny, but I also just want to help her get out of her shell.
Oh, that's really dope. Because it is funny, and I see how your Instagram has progressed from you looking for investments for... Yo, if you don't follow Sodiq on Instagram, y'all need to follow Sodiq on Instagram, like, because when he is not, like, fighting, he's just posting dumb shit.
Yeah, people don't really... Whenever I meet, like, other fighters or, like, fans... It's like they're always like surprised about like how I act. I guess because the way I fight, I look like aggressive, you know. So they always think like I'm like some like rough, mean dude. But like I don't take myself seriously, man. Most of the time I just be making jokes. So like my Instagram is all for laughs. The same thing. Twitter, like my Twitter went. I mean not Twitter. My TikTok, like TikTok went crazy like over like the last like year. Actually, when I fought Alex Caceres, and all I do is just post like dumb jokes and stuff on that jump. But I'm not a serious guy. If you interact with me in person, like I said earlier, life is stressful enough. Like fighting is stressful, you know. Like between the trolling fans, wins and losses, like a lot of things are gonna get you down. It's better for you to spend the rest of your time having fun.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
Very true. Very.
What's your favorite fit?
My favorite fit. Well, anytime she has me put on like the Clarks. Okay, seriously. I like the Clarks and all the little, like, nice sweaters. But, nerdy, like, I like when I put on the anime stuff because when I first met this girl, she swore all anime people was weirdos. But after enough brainwashing and convincing, now she knows everything I be doing. She was like, oh, that's Kirigiri. Like, that's blah, blah. She be knowing all the nerdy stuff. I took her to an anime convention, like, last year, and she was like, man, everybody's gonna be weird, they're gonna be dressing up and blah blah. She got to that jump, started fanning out, yo. I was like, man, like, you're an adult, man. Do the stuff that makes you happy. Like, you're not in elementary school no more. There's no cool kids, you know, and stuff like that is like, it's part of pop culture now. Be yourself. Like, that's one of the best things I got from fighting. It's like, I was never afraid to be myself before, but certain things that I feel I was like too nerdy, I'll overcompensate for being like an athlete, you know? Like I read, like I said, I was captain of wrestling and football, so I'll see like the anime kids going into like the anime rooms like, I'm gonna just go play sports, you know? But like now as an adult, I was like, man, I would have went with them, you know? So like being a fighter, like being tough, you're like, hey, you kind of do what you want, you know?
Who's gonna try me?
Yeah, exactly. Y'all see me in here sometimes when I'm training, and I'll have literally playing the Japanese anime music for my workout. But you're in the UFC, you know? Let him do what he's doing.
It's working for him.
So how long have you been in the UFC? How many years?
I got in December 2018, so that doesn't really count. So I guess I'll start 2019. So it's been 4 years now. It's crazy. It doesn't feel, I don't count the pandemic. So I was I've been in the UFC 2 years, you know, because the pandemic took so much out of my career, you know, like in the beginning of the pandemic, no one was fighting. Then they made Fight Island. Then I found out my passport was expired, and none of the passport offices was working. I had to wait like 6 months to get a new passport.
Oh my God.
And then after that, I had a fight. Then I got COVID really, really bad. Like I had like I was gonna retire COVID. So
oh my God,
that's one of the things like people still don't know about, because I had one of the worst COVID cases. I was just asking around, and I was making it worse because when I first got sick, I got better, then I got back to training. And every time I'll feel something, I'll be like, man, maybe I'm just feeling lazy. Because this was like right after my first loss in the UFC, you know, my only loss in the UFC, actually. So this was after my only loss, and I would think to myself, man, am I being lazy? Maybe I'm just unmotivated. But I should know myself better. I was like, man, maybe I'm just being lazy. So as soon as I would have that feeling of like getting tired or fatigue, I'll go for like a 6 mile run. Not knowing I was slowly making myself worse and worse and worse, all the way to the point where I just couldn't do it anymore. Like it went from being tired at practice to me being tired like as a regular person. Like I'll be walking up the steps and like be ready to pass out.
No regular people go on 6 mile runs, just FYI. And I do remember somebody, I think it was Tafan, saying like you kept trying to up each other, like who can run more miles in a day, like awesome crazy shit.
Oh, trust me, when the quarantine first happened, I was doing like 10 miles every day. Like that was the move back then. But the COVID stuff it took so long for me to figure out what was actually going on until Dr. Rosa was working with another girl that does track. And he was saying that everything I was saying was the same thing she was saying. Like, she was experiencing all the same symptoms. And I started asking people online and stuff like that. I went into a whole COVID group, you know? And man, I feel there's some people in that group to this day that are still, like, having, like, trouble, you know? So, like, I'm happy, like, I was able to make it out on the other side. And it wasn't, like, a straight path to getting better. Like, I would come to the gym, like, 3 days. And then I took off 2. I'll come 4. I'd take off another 1, like stuff like that, until it got to the point where I was finally okay. And that's when we finally took another fight. That's why I was gone. Like most of COVID and quarantine times, man, I lost like a good 2 years of fighting. So yeah, I've been in the UFC 2 years. Long story short, I've been in the UFC 2 years.
How did you support yourself on the path to getting into the UFC?
Great question, Mr. Spriggs. See, this is stuff that people need to know right here.
Yeah.
So one of the things I always say messes a lot of people up is they're just not humble enough to be broke, you know? Like, nah, I'm being serious.
It's true,
You have to be humble enough to be broke, you know? It's like, everybody want to chase this dream and still be like a regular person, you know? Still have like a regular person's life. You know, when they say like, you want to have regular things, you do what regular people do. You want to have irregular things, you have to do irregular things, you know? So it's one of those things like, I didn't have no social life. I was broke as I was super broke. It was to the point where Max Lloyd's mom, when she was still here with us, like she was giving me $50 every week, and that's how I was making it, just $50 every week. And the older guys at the gym would help me out. Macedoni would take me out to eat every once in a while, and that was like my first year of like actually training here. And then after that, Macedoni hooked me up with a job working with the kids, and that helped me out a lot. Still minimum wage, you know, like stuff, but I was here at the gym training, and I had the freedom. Like everybody around me knew what my goal was, So if practice was ever a priority, they would put me to the side to help me out with the schedule. You know, if I had like a competition coming out, they'll help me out with the schedule. People would take my spot and do stuff like that. I also cut back on bills. From my first 2 years of training, my phone was cut off. I remember like some of my friends from high school would hit me up on Facebook. They'd be like, man, your phone's not working, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, I had to turn it off because I couldn't afford a phone. You know, you got to do what you got to do. One of my teammates gave me an iPod. And on the iPod, I'll just have Wi-Fi, and I'll be calling people through WhatsApp on the Wi-Fi. You know, so it's little things like that. I had my first car was a $450 car I got at the auction. As long as it got from point A to point B, I was good. You just can't drive longer than 30 minutes because that like it'll start smoking. You know, I took my fiance now. I took her out on a date in that car, and I remember that junk started smoking, yo. And she got out the car and got on the phone, called her mom, and said, "Mom, it's about to blow up." I was so embarrassed, yo. But she used to call I used to get so hey.
Oh, wow.
I used to be so upset. She used to call my car like Walter or something like that. She just called like old names in my car. But hey, like I said, that car lasted a good year. A $450 car. Imagine that compared to somebody else that's paying a car note every month, like paying like $200 to $300 for a car note. Instead of me, I paid that $450. The car looks like trash. It's not like fancy. Like people aren't gonna be looking at you when you're driving the street, but it'll get you to practice and it'll get you home. That's all I needed. After that, the next car was $900. The next car after that was $1,500. After that, $2,000. Then $5,000. Now $10,000. You know, like it's one of those habits that I never broke. Like even till now, I'm not buying nothing fancy. I still drive the same Nissan I got when I first got into UFC. It's just I slowly like went up. And when I feel like I'm comfortable enough, I'll get something fancy. But it's humility, you know. When you get to a position where you can have that stuff, you can have it. But that's the type of stuff that makes training a little bit easier. You're not worried about bills. You're not worried. Training is never gonna be the problem. Like if this is what you want to do, training will never be the problem. The problem will always come from parents, friends, society telling you should be at this point in your life, you should be having kids at this point, you should be graduating, you should be doing that. That's where the problems come from. So the more you can take that off the table, like the biggest one is bills. Take the bills off the table. Now everything else is just mental. The stuff that's going to come from your parents is going to be mental. Bills is going to be physical because when you get hungry, you're going to be hungry. You know, ain't no training when you're starving to death. You know, but the bills, like that'll be like my best advice to somebody. Take them bills off your table and be humble, man. Drive something broke while you can. You're young. Like that's another thing too. Like the people that I used to talk to back in those days are no longer like training or pursuing fighting. Is like. We was like in our early 20s. It's like why are you worried about what these people think about you? Like why are you trying to drive something fancy? Like look at me. And it's funny. Like some of those people, I would be further than them where I was in my career, and I'll be trying to give them advice, but they're like, yeah, but you could do that, blah blah. Like yeah, but if you see it working for me, why don't you just repeat it? You know, it's like that. It makes no sense to me. Like now that I think I can afford something better, now it's just about resisting temptation, you know. Now it's about making like smart financial decisions. But at that point, at that point though, I don't even think it just made logical sense to me.
Mm-hmm. At what point did you stop driving a bus route? Because when we say Sodiq training to be in the UFC was still kicking and chauffeur, it was chauffeur Sodiq.
Yeah, man. The funny thing. I did that so I have to give a big shout out to Macedoni because Macedoni really looked out for me. Like at the beginning of my career, so amateurs all the way to like deep into the pros, Macedoni hooked me up with working with the kids, and what I was doing is just picking kids up from school and bringing them here. Every once in a while, I would teach kids classes, but it was very, very rare. It was mostly just picking kids up and watching them like when their parents was getting here. And it was a chill job. I won't say that. Some of them kids was wild. Some of them kids but now that I'm 10 years in, like some of those kids now are like in high school, college. You know, it's nice to see them. But I was doing that all the way. I think I was doing that all the way till the UFC, to be honest. But I don't want to. I want to shine more light on how good Macedoni really helped me out because I stopped doing that job like a little bit before the pandemic, but to be honest, a good 2 years before that, I didn't really have a job. Macedonia was just kind of, sorry, Master Lloyd. He was just really giving me money, like, because I was picking up maybe 1 or 2 kids. Every once in a while, I'll come help out. Because most of the time, I was in camp, you know? I was just training, you know? But it was one of those things where, like, he really, really helped me out. And I was always there whenever he needed me, but it was something that I know he didn't have to do. Like, he could have easily just cut back on that check, you know? But he looked out for me. And that's why I said that's one of the benefits of me working here. If you're a young fighter and you could have a job at your gym, I would say go for it. That would be the easiest path that you could have for actually chasing this stuff. Because if I worked at like FedEx or something, I told them I had a fight, they don't care. You better get on that assembly line, man. They don't want to hear that.
True.
When you finally made it, or like got the bag, so to speak, what was the biggest investment that you made with your fight money?
Man, see, that's why I do this, man. Questions, man. The best investment I made to this day is like I said before, we immigrated here. We never had money, so we've always lived in apartments. Like it was always apartment here, apartment there. The best apartment we had was like a 2-bedroom. Outside of that, our first job was like all of us was in that room. Then we had a 2-bedroom. It was like, oh man, we big balling now. Yeah, we're in a 2-bedroom apartment. You know, my mom's gonna hate that I'm telling these Jones, but it is. You guys sometimes gotta appreciate where you come from.
Yeah, that's American dream right
I
there.
your mom on Instagram. I see her stories and her pop up. So you know.
Yeah, and that's a great segue because my greatest investment, I bought a house. I'm in that joint. My brother's about to be out soon though, but it's me, my brother, and my mom. And like that's one of the proudest, like that's one of the most proudest I've ever like felt, you know, because like when we got the house, I remember my mom was like, "Man, I'm so proud of you." Blah blah. We never had a home before. My first time living in a house was when Master Lloyd brought me to live in the fighter house. So and then like now it's like the whole family's with each other. We support each other. If things ever go bad for one of them, I could help them out, you know. And everybody's living like my first thought going through that process. I was driving through the neighborhood and I saw like a bunch of Spanish folks, and they had like 5 cars in front of their house, and I was like, man, why don't we do this? And I feel like it's one of those things that's like, again, pride and ego, where people just want to be like, oh, I don't live with my parents, I don't blah blah. I mean, technically, I don't live with my parents, but people are they're so like fixated on saying like, oh, they got it on their own, they blah blah. If you have a good loving circle, I can't say what everybody else's relationship is, but my family's like a tight bond, you know? And you got somebody that's always going to be there. There's not going to be fighting. There's not going to be people getting in each other's business. Everybody loves each other. Why don't y'all get together and invest in a house together, you know? If you're the breadwinner of the family and you could afford the house, why don't you help everybody else out, you know? Like, oh yeah, y'all come in here, you could pay me $400, you pay me $600, and we're just going to do it like that. When you have all your stuff together and you want to leave, you can leave. Like, that was the best investment I think I've ever made. I don't have no fancy cars. I don't have no fancy clothes. Most of my money go to food. Like, Uber Eats and DoorDash. But that house was a very, very proud moment for me. And, like, to this day, is like, because I kept, I'm not going to act like I'm perfect. When it was happening, I kept thinking about it, too. Because I was like, man, I'm in the UFC. I don't want people being like, man, this dude live with his mom and his brother, you know? Like, those thoughts will still go through your head, you know? Because, like, and we all have egos. It's just how you deal with it. So, like, I kept thinking about that to myself. Like, I changed my mind a few times, but one day I was just like, man, this makes more sense than it doesn't, man. It just makes logical sense. You're helping your family out, and you guys are finally getting to live in a house, you know? And the way my mom reacted after it happened, I was like, ow.
Nothing beats that.
Yeah. You know,
your mother happy.
I was like, I'm so happy I did this, you know. And like you said, like now, like it's like the American dream to me. It's one of those things where I feel like I'm still not where I want to be yet, but how far I've came is like, man, I've already won.
Was that the biggest difference in your life after you got into the UFC, being able to provide like that?
100%, man. 100%. It's just being able to be the guy that like I can help my family out. Before I got to the UFC, all my fight money, But I send all my fight money back home to my brothers and sisters.
Okay.
So you send a car as well.
Oh yeah. All them $400 cars.
Yeah,
whenever them $400 cars broke, yeah, I will send them back to Nigeria.
You say that like, how much does it cost to send a car back?
It's not that much, to be honest, because people are constantly like shipping
Shit
stuff.
was like what?
Yeah, because what we used to do is put the so you guys are thinking this is through like the legal routes.
I was just thinking that.
I'll just let you know that it's not that much.
A whole car?
I mean, but to be honest, a lot of immigrants do this. So it's not, you're not really paying for like the weight of the car. Your car is being used to carry a lot of stuff back home. You know? So as long as it's all legal products, which it is, it's all legal products. And they have like these like ship containers. You know? The car goes in there. You stuff the car full of a bunch of like goods. You know, other people stuff goods in there. Like all legal stuff. You know, all legal stuff. And when it gets to Nigeria, everybody shows up at the port, and everybody takes their stuff out and. You just let them know, like, hey, the car belongs to my family, you know, so they'll take the car. But before that, like, I was like, if I was fighting on the regional scenes and I was making like $1,000 or $1,200, I would send most of that money back to my family. And the way the money translates back there, like, they thought I'd been big balling. They thought I was big balling when I was like in the amateurs.
You're the rich cousin.
Exactly. They thought I was big balling, you know. So I've always been doing stuff like that. It's just. Now, like when I got my debut in the UFC, man, and that's my one and only bonus. I don't know how I'm gonna be getting these bonuses.
That's crazy.
But I got the bonus in Australia, and it's so whack. The only bonus I ever got was in freaking Australia. They took the 30% before I even got the check. Like, they gave me the check with the 30% gone. I was like, they didn't even give me a chance to break the law. I was like, give me a chance to not pay this jump, you know? But they took the money off of the jump before they even gave it to me, you know?
Some people don't like to fight out of
their country. That was my one
Vic used to say that, too.
That was my one and only time. I haven't fought out.
They're like, no, sir, I don't have a passport.
Man, when I got that check, I was like, man, these Republicans might have a point. But with that one, that felt good too, because my mom's car note, I finished off the car note, and I was able to give my brothers and sisters back home like a big chunk. Right before that fight, my eldest brother passed away, but the middle brother and my big sister, I sent them like a good amount, you know, and so like they were very, very happy about that. So that's another thing I gotta work on, man. I need to start being a little bit more greedy with this money. But like you said, it's just in me. I didn't grow up with much, you know. I got used to it. So it's at this point, I can't really change up. I've never really been the greedy guy.
So you are 13-2.
Yes.
Very successful mixed martial arts career so far, and you're still growing in the game. How do you only have 2 losses, which is phenomenal considering how high the level is. How do you bounce back from a loss?
Oh, nice. That, man. Yo, Tim. You don't think this is like episode 160-something? But yeah, to be honest, with the UFC, even with me, I'm probably like 30 fights in if you count everything all together. Mm-hmm. But no matter what, the experience still matters, man. That experience always makes the biggest difference. And the best thing you could do with a loss, this isn't boxing. This is a mixed martial arts. Like, a loss won't kill you, you know? You just have to make sure you make the right adjustments from it. And you just got to learn something from it. No matter how hard it is. Like, winning all the time is hard to take lessons from those because you're constantly winning. I remember the first time I lost, I was fighting for the Titan FC belt. And I remember when I woke up, I was the first thing that went through my mind, I was like, oh damn, I'm a real fighter now. Because it always felt like fate, you know? I was just going I went through my whole amateur career with no losses. Mm-hmm. My first 5 fights was all wins. And like, these are like not necessarily easy wins, but it's like I'm just like sending people out of here, you know? So like when I remember I was like, oh damn, I'm a real fighter now. Because when I was younger, I'm not one of these people that had a fake sense of like what this was. Like the people I looked up to, like George St. Pierre, like they were constantly talking about stuff like that. I was like, this is fighting. Like, it's not just the highlights y'all see on Instagram. It's about the wins and losses. Like, I was already used to losing in the room. So like this was just the first time that the fans saw it, you know. So like it wasn't something that hit me as hard as I think it hits other people, because I wasn't a big like the social media where like the social media will crush you. So for that fight, I was just like, all right, I gotta learn something from this. And the biggest thing I took from that loss was to take everybody's dangerous, you know. No matter how obscure what they do is, as long as they're good at it, like you have to take it seriously. I was already big into watching film, but even while I was watching film, I would still have a certain sense of arrogance, like that's not going to happen to me. That's not blah blah blah. Before that fight, I saw highlight tape of this guy throwing drop Seyanagi people, you know, and he did it to 2 other people. He hit him with a drop Seyanagi, hit him on their head, and they went to sleep. And when we had the fight, Maxwell kept telling me like, hey, don't clinch with this guy. He does his drop Seyanagi, blah, blah, blah. He brought in Master Sugi to help me a couple of times, but it was one of those things where, like, I'm just doing it just because this is what we have to do for practice today. You know, I wasn't, like, focused, like, hey, all right, we can't be here, blah, blah. I'm expecting to win like I always win, you know? So in the fight, I remember throwing punches. I grabbed them, closed my eyes, opened my eyes back up, and now, so I have my back against the fence, grabbed, close my eyes, open my eyes again. Now I'm looking at the fence, and on the other side of the fence is Master Lloyd. And he's like, Shorty, the move! And as soon as he said that, I was like, oh my goodness. So for me, I blinked, and the whole everything changed. But when I looked up at the monitor, I saw he hit me, dropped Seyanagi, landed on my head, and he goes in for the finish. Like the whole 13 seconds, I can't remember that jump. And then after the loss, I started seeing how people react. Like now, there's some people that I became really, really good friends with after that loss, just because of the way that they like reacted and treated me. There's some people that I've never like looked at them again like the same. I had a phone. My uncle called my mom, and I was just around. I went to go visit her at her apartment, and she was like, "Hey, let me talk to Sadiq." I heard her phone. He goes, "Man, how could you let that happen to you, man?" When I tell you, I almost threw that phone at the wall, yo. I was like, and to this day, like, I still don't really bang with that dude, you know? Like, it's cordial, but it's like how people react to you. There was another guy from here, Bomani Jones, and I remember after the loss, he was there with me, and he was like, man, don't worry about that, man. You're blah, blah. He was so nonchalant about, like, the fight that, like, I was like, it really helped me realize, like, no matter what, people are going to the store. Somebody's like trying to fight cancer today. Like just the way that he treated me and reacted about it. That's when I kind of like became friends with bro. I was like, man, this guy is cool. And like I peeped that with everybody. It's like that's what lets you know whose opinion to take seriously when another fight is coming up. When they're like, hey man, Sadiq, good luck, blah blah blah. Nowadays, when you know better, things are easier to let it roll off your shoulder. You're like, all right, you're just saying that. But you will always remember those people that was there when you lost. Like I've had like 28 wins. None, like no matter how great your congratulation was, I don't remember it. But the people that was there when I took those losses, like those people made some big impacts where they'll always be in a great place in my book because I was like, all right, I like the way this guy reacts. And that goes into coaches too. Like there's some coaches where like you're like, okay, I never want this guy around ever again, you know? Because there's some coaches where they would want to detach themselves from you when you lose. Like, no matter how hard they try to hide it, you can feel it. And there's some coaches where they'll pour more into you. And you can feel that too. So, like, that was the biggest thing I got from that first one. Then the second one where Arnold is, like, after that fight was when I started focusing more on just, like, mental stuff. Like, I started going to, like, sports psychologists and stuff like that after that fight because that was the first time I ever found myself in the third round where it was no longer about winning the round. It was about winning the fight. But my mindset never changed. I was still trying to win the round. Because people see the way I fight and they're like, oh man, so he's exciting, he's a finisher, blah, blah. But that just comes naturally because I have knockout power and I have the way I train and the way I drill, it comes naturally. But if you left it up to me, I would do whatever it takes to just get a W. If it was to just hold you against the fence for 30 minutes, I would do that, you know? But in that fight, it was no longer about trying to win the round. I remember when I was rewatching the tape, and I was hearing the commentators saying, like, man, Sadiq got to go for the finish. And in the corner, Max Lloyd told me I had to go for the finish, but my mindset never changed. I was still just, like, holding him up, like, trying to, like, score to win the round. Then when the fight was, I was like, dang. Like, it never clicked. I started going to a sports psychologist. I started talking about being more in the moment when I'm fighting. Because a lot of times when I'm fighting, I'm, like, on autopilot. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, being in the zone is great. And being in the zone will get you far. Like, that's what got me all the way to where I was when I got to that fight. But I think now that I'm ranked in the UFC, or when I'm facing the higher level guys, it's no longer about just being in the zone the whole time. You have to be able to take yourself out sometimes so you can make decisions. And I feel like that's what separates the champions from like the top 10 guys. Because when you're in the zone the whole time, you just muscle memory. He does this, I do this, blah, blah, blah. But the champions can make decisions like, okay, it's time for us to take a break because we're fighting 5 minutes. Okay, it's time for me to go for a takedown just to make them think I'm going for a takedown. Like, they're making decisions now. And then I started implementing that in practice where I'll be sparring like, all right, so you got to go for a takedown right now. Instead of just before I'll be like, oh, I slipped for a punch, I went in for a takedown, but I didn't make that choice. I just did it because that's what my body does. It was like now you have to start making decisions in the fight. And when I fought Bruce Leroy, I was like, I felt very, very in the zone. Like, I felt very, very much like I was making decisions when I needed to. Like, I was able to go in there and take myself out, make the right choices and make the right calls.
Wow.
Dang,
that's deep.
That's deep.
I'm taking notes. I'm taking mental notes. Okay, so
that was like really dope. You had a few really deep points.
But that's the highest level of anything. Like, you got to think like that. And that, we don't, very rarely do I get to hear MMA fighters talk like that, man. Like, really, like, the gamesmanship of it, the chess match within the chess match is crazy.
To be honest, I think once you get, like, to the I would even take it past the top 15. Probably, like, the top 20 guys in the UFC. I think if you just throw them in a sparring, you'll be very surprised how those fights will look. But when it comes to the actual fight, like the champions, those are the guys I think they're in that, like, in the ring playing a game. Like, they're making decisions on how to win. Like, they know how to win in the cage. There's no longer necessarily like a skill thing. At this point, like, I'm always in practice still picking up new skills, but I know how to fight. Like, I know how to fight. Now it's just implementing a game plan, being better at executing than the next guy.
You are a proud Nigerian fighter.
Yes, sir.
Representing a whole country and a whole continent.
Yeah.
How important is representing your country to you?
Man, it means a lot, man. To be honest, when I first started, I used to tell kids in middle school I wanted to be a UFC fighter. And, like, most of them didn't even know what it was. And, like, it's PG County, people don't know nothing about no UFC. But I've been telling people this all the time. And I remember, like, seeing Rampage and Rashad back then. I was like, man, those are some black dudes over there. Eve Edwards, like, Dean, like, all those guys, like, oh, man, those are black dudes in there. And, like, it give you that little bit of connection. But it was a whole different type of connection when I saw Usman on the Ultimate Fighter. I was like, there's no longer a black dude in there. That dude's Nigerian. I was like, man, that guy comes from where I come from, you know? So that connection is like, every time you get a little bit more attachment to something you see on TV, because the TV makes things seem like so fictional, you know? Like, to this day, when I'm watching my opponents, like when I watch a film on my opponent, I never watch it on TV. I always watch it on my phone, just like keep it small, because I don't want that awestruck feeling of seeing somebody on a grand stage, you know. And it's just a little bit of like mental stuff with me. And when I finally saw Usman on that grand stage, it's no longer like, oh, it's no longer fake, you know, like that guy's Nigerian, you know, like there's a Nigerian in the UFC, like you could do this, he's from where you're from. And then when he won the belt, dog, man, I almost cried in that job. I was like, yo! Like, that's crazy. Like, so I know what that feeling is, you know. I was always a fan before I was a fighter. So I know, like, if I could give that same thing to somebody else back home, I know how much that means to them, you know. And I try to stay level-headed to where, like, these people could see, like, I'm just a regular guy, you know. A lot of these fighters try to fake the funk, like oh, I'm not scared when I'm fighting. I'm this in one punch. Now I know when the fight's gonna end. But all that stuff is like, it just detaches like the younger kid that want to be you more and more. That's why George was always my favorite fighter, because he talked about being afraid. He talked about what losses felt like. He talked about what fighting is gonna feel like. He didn't make it seem so like fictional to the point where if you're a kid aspiring to be a fighter, you would just be like, all right, I can't do that, or I'm not from where that guy's from. So like the young Nigerian kids back home seeing me doing this, man, like when I go back home, I still like walk around on the street. I remember somebody was like, Sadiq, what are you doing? What are you doing walking around here? You know, like, it's like I'm still part of the community. Now, I can't do that no more. But
for real, you can't walk the street no more?
Nah.
You recently went back though. Like, have you
the last trip walking on the street didn't feel it didn't feel the same no more.
How so?
You know, it was still love, you know, but Nigeria, what we call gangs are like area boys, you know. So like when I went to go do like an interview, and I was just walking around, and then I just got like surrounded by the area boys, and it was like, Super City! But like before they started talking, I thought it was about to go left, you know? Like, you know, like these dudes don't look friendly, you know? Like they're all grabbed up, mobbed up, and like then they started sharing. They're like, oh, they started snapping pictures. I was like, oh God, thank you. I was like, man, no matter how much you can fight, you ain't beating 10 people.
So what will happen? Like, what will you do next time you go back? Do you like have to hire security or just not be on the street?
Yeah, you know,
like,
just, not necessarily security. You know, just you got. You
gotta move different.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're going somewhere, just go and leave, you know, and stay in like probably the nicer parts of the state, you know.
Because kidnappings are a thing, you know.
And people find ways to make money however they can, man.
Yeah.
So, are you doing anything to kind of build the sport back home?
Yeah, there's even like before I got to UFC. There's been like the same boxing clubs from like where my sister like lived and grew up at that I've been always supporting since then.
Yeah, I follow her on Instagram too, Super Sadiq Squad.
Yeah. So like with them, like I've been donating money, donating equipment, donating gloves to them since way before I even got to like where I'm at now. And it's one of those things where I haven't been back to Nigeria in a while. And that's because like I told you guys earlier, my eldest brother passed away, but then my other brother passed away. And like it was one of those things where it's like in the back of my mind, I always used to have it like, man, my mom don't want to go back to Nigeria because like she still heard about it and blah blah blah. And then I remember one day we was just chilling and she was like, hey Sadiq, you want to go back to Nigeria? And when she said it, I started like mumbling, like started like stuttering and shit. I was like, and then I realized I was like, I've been putting the blame on him. I was like, I wasn't ready to confront that junk, you know. So like it's one of those things I always make plans like, oh, I'm gonna go to Nigeria. It's a battle that I still haven't faced yet, but I will. So
you didn't recently go back?
No,
was your mom recently there? I was seeing pictures.
Yeah, my mom did, and I planned it again,
so
and I canceled it again. So it's one of those things where like my last brother just passed away. Like he was like my connect guy. He was like my when I was a kid. That was like my protector for like he used to take me around everywhere. And now we're going to switch subjects because I don't want to get sad.
Okay.
All right. On a lighter note, who do you want to fight next?
All right. So first, I asked for... Man, I don't know what's going on here. Every time I ask for somebody, they never give it to me. My first fight, I asked for Kron Gracie. Kron just like vanished. I don't know what the heck happened to Kron. Like he had a fight with Cub and he just vanished. Like, because I was trying to show people that... People always think I just know how to strike. They're like, oh, he don't have no ground game, blah, blah. Like, man, I want to fight like a grappler. So I called out Kron. Didn't get that. After that, I called out Bryce. I didn't get that jump. Then I called out Korean Zombie. I didn't get that fight. So, like, it's one of those things where, like, the craziest thing is, like, I called out Zombie and they gave the fight to Giga. And, like, it makes no sense. I was supposed to fight Giga and then Giga couldn't make the fight. And then he got like the reward from me winning, you know? It don't make no sense, you know? So like, at this point, man, as long as I'm fighting forward, I don't mind. Because I've had 2 more wins now where I either stayed the same or the last case, I had a win and I went backwards. So like, it's like what's going on here? Like I went from 11 to 12. So it's one of those things. As long as I'm fighting somebody forward, I don't care. I'll take whoever they give me. I got the call for Giga again last week, but I had to turn it down. If y'all didn't know, Max Lloyd popped 2 discs in my back and slipped the disc, so I've just been sitting around watching practice. The UFC recently just paid for some shots in my spine, and now I could like walk and sit down. Like before, if I was sitting here with y'all, I would be in pain, but I could sit down and walk without pain. So just about gradually getting back into training. So I had to turn that fight down because I'm not even training at all. But when I'm healthy, as long as you're ahead of me, I'll be happy to take it.
That's what's up.
All right. One last question from me. If you could go back in time, fight any fighter, any historical figure ever, doesn't matter who would it be?
Dang, man, they about to hate me. I'm gonna beat the mess out of Bruce Lee, boy. That's why everybody watching this right now. I'm watching this right now going crazy, yo. He think I'm a Bruce Lee hater. I'm not a Bruce Lee hater. I just don't like how people put his name with these greats, you know? And I know
he said these greats? Are you talking to your hands?
No, not these greats. I like the greats is like you hear somebody talking about like George St. Pierre or someone talking about Mayweather or something, and then somebody would just bring up Bruce Lee. I'm like,
oh no,
like, yo, come on, dog. I was like, if you're gonna bring Bruce Lee in the conversation, you might as well bring Jet Li and Jackie Chan in the conversation. I feel like they're in the same spot, and Jet Li and Jackie Chan might give him some work. So like, don't sleep on them, you know. So it's one of those things where like I've always felt like people. See, now I sound like a real hater. You know?
No, go in. Go in. That's what this show's about. Go in, Sadiq. Go in. I want
one of those things like. I've had you won't believe how many people that I told I could beat up Bruce Lee and they didn't believe me. It's like man, like what do you think Bruce Lee's gonna do to me? It's like they will like argue me to death. These people don't know nothing about fighting, but they will swear that Bruce Lee will beat me up. You know, so it's one of those things. I remember that night I had a running joke here, like every time you talk about Bruce Lee, something bad happened because I had like a week straight. I just kept hurting something at practice, and that just happened to be the same week where I was telling him that Bruce Lee's not a fighter. I was like, he's an actor. He's a great actor, and you know what? I could even call him a martial artist. I'll even say he's a martial artist, but he's not a fighter. You know, so if I can go back, Bruce Lee gonna catch these hands. You know.
Oh my gosh. Do you have any more questions, Nico? Another anime question?
No, that's
okay.
I'm done.
Those are some good questions.
All right, man. Well, you know, Sadiq, before we leave, is there anything you'd like to plug? Anything you want to shout out? Any initiatives? Any YouTube channels?
Yes, I would like to say go subscribe to my YouTube, man. Like I've been. Ever since I gave up the video games, I've been trying to put out a lot more content out there. You know, I'm trying to also like show people like my character more, you know, so everybody just don't think I'm like the scary UFC guy, you know. Most of the time I'm just out there making jokes, just trying to catch vibes. When it's time to be scary, it's time to be scary. But outside of that, I'm just trying to have fun.
Do you have your old school videos on the YouTube channel? Because I made Tiff not ask you about starting a martial arts or anything like that.
Oh, no,
I know you have videos on your YouTube channel. You even had animated ones.
Yeah. So
I hope you didn't delete them.
I didn't delete them. I just unlisted them because now I want to make it like a little bit more professional.
All right. Well,
back then I was just like using my phone to make it, but I'm gonna retell all those stories.
I didn't let him ask that because I knew you had the channel, so I was like,
no, man, that's fine, man.
Y'all go over and listen to that. Plus, we had fun here.
One of the things I've actually learned from this stuff is like you can't tell your story enough, because the same way people that know me doesn't necessarily mean is the same people that's watching this, you know. There's people that's gonna watch out that don't know me, and there's people that know me, they're gonna see my YouTube, but they've never watched this before. There's people that watch this before, they're never gonna watch my YouTube. So even if you tell your story a million times, that's how narratives are, you know. You see some of these famous people, if you just look up their interview and click through it, you'll see they're repeating the same stories over and over again. So I don't mind that, man. But everything
we got the juice out
super Sadiq.
But you need to put back some of them videos, redo them if you do, like especially the Malachi cheese one.
Oh yeah, I will.
You talking about the refrigerator joint?
Yes, that was all on his YouTube channel. So his YouTube channel is lit. Make sure you go and subscribe to that. What else did you want to plug?
And, TikTok is good. I'm at 1.5 million. Yeah, I'm at 1.5 million on TikTok and Instagram. So there's Super Sadiq. TikTok is the only thing that I go live on, and I go live on there quite often, like when there's fights and stuff. Yeah, I like TikTok because the TikTok people have no idea who I am. Like it's just little kids. Like they don't be knowing nothing. Like, and some of these TikToks, like you like post like a funny video from back in the day, they'll have no idea. Like man, everybody already laughed at this on Instagram, you know. So like I'll get on there. It's either like older people that just found out about the internet on TikTok, or like younger like Gen Z people. So like there's no like in between, you know. So I like them type of people, because when I get on there too, it's just people asking me like random fight questions. Most of them don't even know what the UFC is on TikTok, you know. So I like TikTok a lot for the live stuff, and Instagram is more for like my like MMA fans.
Excellent.
Gotcha. That is hilarious.
Well, Sodiq, thanks for coming on the show. On behalf of Nico, I'd like to say thanks for everybody for watching another episode of the BJJ Goons podcast. And until next time, peace.